In my experience with the usage, the shamanic and sacred usage of plant medicines, I've always felt that the most important part, besides the experience, is the integration part. And the integration part, if we're really honest with ourselves, it takes a lifetime. Once we have seen these vast truths, they're so gigantic that it takes time. It takes time to integrate and to absorb these truths and make them work as part of our existence.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. Today we have Martina Hoffmann in the house. Thank you so much for being with us. Really, really a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Sue.
For our listeners, I would like to share a little bit of your bio so they have a feel, in case they haven't met you before, who you are, and then we'll take it from there, if that's okay.
Yes.
Great. So Martina is a German-born, and she partially grew up in Cameroon, West Africa. She works as a painter, sculptress, and remains as a central figure in the contemporary visionary art. Her paintings offer the viewer a detailed glimpse into her inner landscape, imagery that has been inspired by expanded states of consciousness. Her visionary realism is decidedly feminine and places the universal woman in an intimate cosmos. She transcribes her ecstatic experience, but also her subtle reflections on the nature of women in a realistic style, which marries the fantastic to the sacred. And her work has been featured many places in the museums, and there's also exhibitions, books. One of the most exciting one that I picked up was the documentary with Stanislav Grof, which I consider him as one of my mentors in psychedelic space. So I'm really interested in diving deeper into your life, what brings you to this work, Martina. And yeah, let's begin there, because I have quite a few questions and I'm really intrigued about your art and your visions.
Great. Yes. What would you like to know?
So what brings you to this work? Your background, what influenced you? What inspired you? How did it all begin?
Well, as most artists would probably respond to that question, I think I've been a creator all my life. I always remember myself drawing and building things when I was a young child, and it's always been creating, making art in brackets, and has always been since my early days my favorite pastime, my solace, my balance, and then as I progressed through life, as I walked through life, I chose to study art partially. Part of me wanted to cover academics, and another portion wanted to stay with art. So I studied sculpting at the Goethe University in Germany, and as well as French, and I wasn't. It's always very interesting to find yourself as a young person, and we never quite know. Most of us don't really know where we want to go. So there's a lot of dreaming going on, and I definitely had this connection with wanting to be an artist, but there's always the societal aspects of how will I manage my life. There's family that suggests that one studies something that is a good supportive activity throughout the years of our lives. So in any event, long story short, I in the in the 80s, I was I was kind of disenchanted actually with university life. So I decided to just to take a sabbatical and move to Paris. And of course, trying to follow in the footsteps of all these famous artists that have lived there and that became artists in that amazing city. And through incredible synchronicity, I was taken to a place in Spain that is a small fishing village called Cadaqués, where I met a wonderful visionary painter by the name of Robert Venosa. And Cadaqués is the city of Salvador Dali. This is where he lived and worked. And so meeting Robert was an eye-opener because he was quite a visionary and one of the first pioneers of psychedelics and usage and explorations. So he was just really an amazing entryway into not just art, but also a certain way of life and seeing life and through a certain perspective, and spirituality kicked in, and my awareness of being connected to everything, something I carried in my heart since my early childhood, but that I couldn't quite formulate and describe. It all became more real and more accessible and more describable for me once I started living with Robert and I became a painter, because his art is just amazing. It still is, and it has inspired many generations of visionaries, and including me. And so we worked side by side for 3 decades until he passed away in 2011. And visionary art has always been the obvious expression of what I carry inside, and all the information and the intuition that comes through by many ways of connecting with more expanded states of consciousness, if you will. I mean, that could include the dream, that could include meditation, that could include shamanic journeys, all the above, and just being really open. I mean, whenever we do that, the energy just flows, and that's how I work. I just grab what is there, and images come very easily to me. So I feel very blessed to have this path and to have known it for quite a while now.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I just wanted to mention the Viva. Viva, is that how you spell it?
Viva, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Collection of a website that we'll be adding in the show notes for our listeners to check out. Yours, Pascal Ferry, and Robert Venosa, because I watched a few conversations with Robert and yourself, and it was just so inspiring. And I was just saying that meeting someone like a teacher that kind of unleashes you into a complete new path, or not path, but it was already there. How do you see that? Because a lot of people always meet that teacher, but in your case, it wasn't just the teacher, but you also got to spend life and path and evolution. It's like an evolution together. How do you see that? Do you see that as a sacred sort of meant to be, or was it spontaneous? Do you believe that we come here to meet those teachers that then take us on a complete,
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't really call Robert my teacher. I mean, we had a relationship. So our primary connection was our bond, our attraction for each other, and how we discovered that we had so many incredible things in common, although we were 21 years apart. He was 21 year my senior, which was, of course, in that respect, extremely inspirational. And that's where all the information came from his side. It was just by virtue of him having lived all these experiences before me, and that kind of, opened so many doors in my own being, in my mind. And so yeah, but that was just it was more of a mentorship for my art. And he wouldn't sit me down and teach me step by step. I mean, he did that he showed me how to use mediums and brushes and oils, but pretty much the rest, he explained a little bit of a very ancient technique to me, which is the Mish technique by the brothers Van Eyck, and which is also at the foundation of his art. And I just watched him and I grabbed it and I went with it. And so in a way, while I had a mentor, but I'm also a self-made painter. I'm an autodidact. So
unlocking your own.
I did not paint. Yeah. I did not go to painting academy. I studied sculpting, but I didn't study painting. But interestingly enough, painting became my first love. So this is how it all unfolded. And yes, to come to your question, I don't think anything happens by chance. I think everything happens synchronistically, as we call it in, or as our higher self calls it in. And I think maybe that could be described as destiny more than anything else. It's just our greatest knowing pulling in those crossroads that really move us forward and set us on the path that we're yearning to walk.
Yeah, and that's very powerful to think that there's a very powerful perspective there. This is really interesting. So you evolved and you started to paint and it's all unlocked within you. What I'm really interested in, if you could talk to us about the theme, the feminine, sort of that the visionary sort of feminine energy. So we see, by the way, I have this beautiful book that I was gifted, which has all of your paintings, and we'll also
landscapes.
Oh, this was like something that I think I stared at this for about half an hour. I
wish you could see it. It's very, very big. It's actually huge. Hanging at the Naya Museum in France.
Right. Talk to us about that. The museums and some of your work is just all over the place. For our listeners who are interested, where can they go? Where can they find you? Because it's just mind-blowing. And interestingly, because I'm in the sort of psychedelic space and working through understanding and making sense of the psychedelic experiences, this kind of landed when I looked at it, and I looked at the title. It was The Landing. I was like, oh my goodness, synchronicity was just so powerful.
Thank you.
That was in Colorado, and I had the privilege to meet you in person. You were just sort of there, and your paintings were just overpowering the entire exhibit hall. And we stood there, I think, a long time, just staring, and just it pulls you in, it takes you in. And one of the questions that kept coming in was that the feminine in the center. And I really want to hear your thoughts about that. How did that come about and evolved for you?
Well, I mean, I definitely grew up as in the in the 70s, in the late 70s, going into the 80s. I was very interested in feminist literature. And we've all been. I mean, I think most of my sisters have been working very diligently on restoring a certain balance in our world, and to bring the harmony between the male and the female, and all its different expressions through various people and how they want to celebrate one or the other or both in their being. And and I also have in my past life in my young life an incident of abuse, of sexual abuse, and I like to say it openly because it's not something we should feel ashamed about, but it's something I always knew, I've always been aware of, and of course all of these inputs, created this desire for wholeness and for healing, So I investigated all the ins and outs, the procreative, the creative aspect of women, the procreative aspect, the sacred aspect of women, and my awareness was very focused in my earlier years as a woman on the sadness and the abuse and the violence that we have suffered as a gender, and so art is a wonderful way to create images that can change the way we see the world. I mean, we're always influenced by what we see, and we are bombarded in this world with images now with AI. It's just, going even wilder. And so I always feel like we have to be very conscientious about what we create on canvas, because what we create on canvas will virtually become a part of reality, the fiber of reality, and every viewer will carry that image within them, and it will modify him or her. So yeah, it's been a pleasure to speak for my kind through my art, and I just can't help it. I mean, the feminine is often very, very deeply represented in my work. Even here in this new painting, there's a dragon rider. I don't know if you can see her as a female form. She actually has this very swollen belly. She's very pregnant with something new, and yeah, so she's all of this feminine energy just keeps coming through in my work, and I'm honored to represent that.
This is so beautiful. And there was one that I think it was you in the painting. It's almost like this female sitting in the absolute, like, infinite cosmos, with your
Oh
knee.
yes, inward. Yes, that's me in a state of meditation. And you see the solar system floating below my feet, and in meditation we can go very, very far. And I've experienced the void, and that's what that represents. And there's a sense that we get when we allow the space to be present in our being. It is the sensation is one of being home, or of coming home, when we go to those places and become
that's
part of the all for very few short moments in our daily waking lives.
Right, the spells of little moments to touch and feel that.
The moments of grace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so powerful, honestly. I'm looking forward to introduce you to our listeners, and I'm sure some of them know already. And you said something about the imagery, the paintings, the art, as a way of, like, imprinting in people, the viewer that's experiencing it, whether they don't know this or not. It's unconsciously sort of they carry the fabric of. I think when you said that, I had chills going down. I thought, I have never heard any truer words. I think there was where did I hear this? There was a conversation that we were having, that now it's a age of vision and imagery, and like seeing, and also like observing, like, there's from the ages, if you go back the history, there was also like there was an era where music, the sound was the thing, and then there was a written text, and then there was a era. Now they say that this is the era of the pictures, that images, right? So do you agree? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems obvious with the development of new media and digital media, and still, I mean, images, the way I create them, I feel that my images have vibration, the same way music has vibration or sound has vibration. And because they're created in a very specific way, they're not, I don't construct them, so they don't come from an intellectual place. They're not coming from an analytical place in my mind. It's not like I decide that I want to paint a specific subject and then I start drawing and sketching it out. It's more of a general feeling or something I want to express that might be very raw, or just me being open to whatever possibility there might be. And then I begin my canvases in a very abstract way. And this painting is very interesting in that way, where you see how I create certain forms, but and then I kind of look into these forms, and they speak to me, and a story develops, and it takes quite a while to bring that out. And it's sort of like a meditative dialogue, if you want, where I kind of observe and I flow with what happens. And sometimes the process of painting becomes it's almost mindless, where my hand moves automatically and just follows forms. And all of a sudden, it feels as if I'm connecting forms, connecting darts that start having a communication with one another. And that's how something happens, where they start dancing and creating an image and a content.
And how did that come about? Was it in the beginning, was it difficult? Is it something that you developed? Is it just, or you just get out of the way? Like, how does it come together for you?
Yeah, in the beginning, I definitely came from a conceptual place in my art. And if you look at my earlier work, some of it is almost photorealistic, like my portraits, they're very realistic. So as I progressed in my art, I started to allow these amorphous forms to become more dominant, and I started to really look to bring these inner worlds and landscapes forward in my art. And it's been a very harmonious process, a beautiful journey of discovery. And I guess I also learned in my art how to let go, how to allow, how to watch and allow things to happen, and just observe and be at peace and with what I was creating.
Yeah.
Just becoming a part of it, I guess, was what I was trying to do.
And that, I'm guessing that translates into life, right?
Yes,
so all these things, all these concepts that we want to learn and master, letting go, and all these beautiful things, it's unfolding through the art.
It is, and the art is certainly always for an artist. I mean, for me personally, I can only speak for myself. I feel that however I've been going through life has also represented itself in the way I create my art, of course, and what subjects I would create, and the colors and the content, and of course my higher self is always absorbing everything, and it's being reflected in these paintings. And I can also say that, I mean, I've always been inspired by my dreams. I've been always a very lucid dreamer, and I've been very opened all my life. That meaning that I've been very very intuitive, empathic, and feeling something in nature when I was a child that I couldn't quite describe, and until much later, and until I found my own personal spiritual connection. And not a very religious person. I'm just a very open, naturally spiritual person. And there is, I've had migraine headaches in my childhood, which also gave me visual and auditory hallucinations. And so all of that has inspired me, but then also shamanic journeys came into my life at a certain point with plant medicines, and that really, really kicked my ass in many ways and opened me to a whole different place where maybe I really learned how to let go. Because when we travel very far, in that respect, when we travel very far internally, the only way to handle that and integrate that properly is by letting go and allowing the possibilities in. And so they
sounds like
shamanic practices have also played a great important role in the development of my style and my artwork.
Yeah, it truly sounds like an evolutionary process. So as the viewer, we are experiencing you through your whole evolutionary journey in your paintings. I think that's such a powerful way to be in the world, just to sort of express that into the world. It must be so beautiful. I'm sure it had all its ups and downs. I'm sure it wasn't always flowing. I'm sure you might even tell us that it still very much can be like that. But what I'm hearing is that ultimately letting go process is the dominant, what's in the thing that's already unfolding in the background that drives everything, right?
Yes. I think just allowing in the potential of what we can be is a really important place, a very important piece in life, as in art, and if we can manage to do that, just being open and taking perspective, then life becomes easier. Of course, we're human beings, so we all have our ups and downs, but I can say that art has always been my tool to stay centered, to connect with the deepest aspects of myself, and with whatever is out there, the indescribable. And it's my way of just finding peace on a daily basis.
That is just so powerful.
I work every day. I work, I paint as much as I can. There are times, there's so many activities that we have to take care of as artists. We have to communicate, and there's the demands of, the public aspects of our lives, and preparations and writing and answering questions and doing interviews, which is fun. So all of that is part of it. But I try to give as much as I can, as much time to my creative process. And for me, creating is really a path. It's not an occupation. It's not a job. It's not something I have to do to make a living. It's just something I chose and to do because I love walking my life like this. I like to be a creator, and so it's just always been being dedicated to my paintings is something I do with joy. It's an incredible gift to me.
I was just thinking of that, and as I'm hearing you talk, I'm thinking there are, coming from a therapy background, there are lots of people I'm engaging with, and they're always in this despair of, okay, here I am, I'm in the cracking open phase, and what do I hold on to? What do I do? Do I meditate? Do I, breath work? What do I do? What are the regulation? How do I regulate? What are the resources? And I feel like art has been the thing, and it's such a tool. You said it's optimized this whole journey. Just, this whole evolutionary journey just been expressed through art. I think everyone struggling, like the way I see people that are going through their awakenings and, coming to a turning point in their lives, looking for something else and ready to change what's been dominating them. There's always this confusion and despair. Like, what would you say to those? What would you say to our listeners that feel like they don't know which side, where art to hold on to help them process, help them go through that letting go process as well? That's what I'm hearing, the key here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not an easy thing to let go of old paradigms. No, it's our behavior when we do hold on. It's just basically fear-based, fear of losing it all and losing control. And the truth is that in order, I think, to be happy, we do have to lose a little bit of control, and sometimes completely, where we just, don't know where we're going next. And I've experienced that many times in my life when I made important turns on my path where I had no idea how I was going to do a certain thing and how it would come to pass. And I wouldn't have maybe the situation or the means or the wherewithal and the logistics in place. And I think we can just, the best thing we can do is just trust that whatever we do, we will always get where we need to go. And I think in life we have incredible free will to choose how we get there. But ultimately, we'll always go to where our higher self has been wanting to go all along, whatever that means for us individually.
Even if it means several detours.
Detours are great. I mean, if we can enjoy detours, I mean, I've experienced setbacks, and I've experienced deep loss and grief, and I've experienced sadness and depression, and I've always come back to a state of health and balance through my art. So, I mean, I can honestly say if anybody can find it in their being to attempt a creative activity, and I mean with creative, I really mean grabbing a piece of earth and making a sculpture, or going into the woods and collecting things that they might build into a meaningful structure, or do a ritual with sticks and stones, or learn how to draw or paint. I mean, the creative process can be as involved and as serious as we want it to be, and we can study, but everybody can be creative. I mean, I've found that I've taught many workshops throughout the years with Robert. For about 18 years, we taught regularly workshops at Esalen Institute and at Omega in the US, and at conferences and festivals, and went to Burning Man together and to Boom Festival. I mean, we've done all the circuits that have been so beautifully open to our expressions, and in all those years of facilitating creative expression, I never saw anybody who could not create something amazing. It's I think for the lay person, the person who doesn't think that they are artists, oftentimes there's a lot of self-critique, which is another reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So the idea is always to just allowing things to be as they are, and then seeing the beautiful pieces that are in every disposition, in every situation, and making those come forward, bringing those into value.
Yeah, these are beautiful reflections and advice. Thank you so much. And if you don't mind, I would like to go to your experience with the plant medicines. And you said Esalen, you taught there, and also you met Stan Grof, and from
Yes.
an early time, and you also met Albert Hoffmann.
Yes.
What was it like back in the day to be working with plant medicines as opposed to now? Like how's your relationship now with the plant medicines, and then what do you see now as opposed to the beginning of the revolution? What are your
Well,
insights?
I mean, when I connected, for example, with Robert, Robert had been through really the first early 60s pioneers revolution, where he was one of the early explorers of LSD. And as I was growing up, there was no way of, I mean, in my world, in my childhood world, or in my adolescent world, there was not much connection to the psychedelic world at all. I mean, I remember watching Woodstock on television when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And I remember crying because I felt that I had missed something really pivotal, a very pivotal moment in time. And I wanted to be so much part of that moment of opening. And I was so far away from it. I lived in Germany, and I was in the States, and obviously that had happened quite a bit before I was even ready to see this incredible documentation. So, and then there were passages. I mean, the 80s, they were not very psychedelic, but then something happened again. I mean, the opening towards exploring expanded states of consciousness, thanks to people like Stanislav Grof and the amazing pioneers and philosophers like Terence McKenna, who was a really good friend of mine, or a sweet friend of mine, and the efforts of MAPS, Rick Doblin. I mean, all these people have worked. I've known quite a few of these amazing people for a long time, and I've been watching them being so steadfast and helping educate and changing the way we see publicly today all these the use of certain substances in conjunction with psychotherapy and trauma work, and it's a true blessing. And so things have definitely opened up. I do also see a certain the whole development and opening has also created a commodity. It's become more accessible to many people. It has a financial aspect that is there. Things have definitely changed. There's a certain innocence that has left the room here for me, and but there's no criticism in this. Everything changes, and we just have to see where this leads us. But I'm definitely very very happy and grateful for the people who can benefit from assisted usage of psychoactives and heal from their deep trauma and So yeah,
Yeah.
it's an exciting time. I would say we're opening so many portals at this moment, and there's so much change in the air that we quite don't know how do we hold this. And I
Right.
think we have to learn we have to be very mindful to hold it all very ethically and respectfully. And yeah, well, right now I'm actually part of a very beautiful uh, museum exhibition in Paris at the Musée du Quai Branly, Jacques Chirac, which is one of Paris's most cherished museums. And this exhibition is called Shamanic Visions. And many of my very good friends are in there. It's mostly a show, an exhibition about the usage of ayahuasca in the Shipibo community, and how the expression, the images, the ayahuasca patterns have developed, and how Shipibo art has developed from very naive to almost more commercial. I mean, there's Shipiba paintings that sell in galleries for $50,000-$60,000 today. So this is where this whole concern comes in. Great, wonderful, but it's also become a commodity, and it's become part of the art market, this type of work, and it's become a thing. And there's the tourism that goes hand in hand with shamanic tourism. It goes hand in hand with opening certain modalities to foreigners in indigenous cultures. So a lot of things to think about. And anyway, but the show is really amazing. It's very complete, gives us the history of ayahuasca use and the cultural and artistic expressions. And there's a little bit about the early explorers, Richard Evans Schultes, Burroughs and Ginsberg, the Yahe letters, and then it rolls slowly into towards the end of the show, and a few artists have been selected, non-Indigenous artists have been selected to represent the psychedelic and ayahuasca paintings and expression contemporary now, and I'm happy to say that the work of Robert Venosa, as well as my own work, is represented in there, along with Jan Konen, the French movie director. And then they have a few digital panels with art by Alex and Alison Gray, and Andrew Jones, and Daniel Mirante, and Chris Dyer. So it's a very, there's even an immersive aspect to the exhibition. So not to be missed, it's a show that's going to be up until May 26th. So it's a true honor to be part of this exhibition that has really opened people's minds to the shamanic usage of plant medicines and the sacred journeys that can be had. And the show is one of the most visited that the museum has had since its opening in 2006.
Wow, this is incredible. Thank you for sharing. Sounds like a really rich and really needed at this point for us to immerse in the true knowledge of it. Not far from me, actually, France. It's like a 2 hours.
Yes, it's just a hop. Yes,
right.
You can just hop on the train.
This is wonderful.
If there's no flooding.
Right, that's another thing. So, Martina, what about? I love that the word that you said, innocence, kind of lost a little bit. When I look at my experience with the Colorado conference, I'm sure you noticed so many different things that are emerging in this current wave. And there was a talk by Stanislav, Grof, and Bridget, and their group. And then obviously I noticed and sort of listened to other different people in the groups. what really struck to me, what stood out for me was that their group, like Stan and his group, it felt like they knew something that the rest of the world is missing. Like they had this very grounded energy. It was quite humbling. They carried this. They do you know what I mean? Does it make sense when I say that? It's
Yes.
almost like they knew something about the psychedelic medicine, the plant medicine, that the whole world is missing. And that was really profound for me to notice.
I know what you mean. I mean, this is definitely, I mean, Stan and Brigitte, they're definitely, and Stan even more because he's really at the beginning of psychoactive assisted psychotherapy. I mean, he's just he's a giant, really. And he's one of the most humble human beings that I've ever met, and so grounded. I mean, I always felt the moment I met him and being in his presence, I always felt that he could hold so much. Just being in his presence, you would feel, I mean, I would feel grounded and safe and home. That's the kind of person he is. And I think this whole idea of elderhood is really important. And the indigenous people have always honored the elders and respected and listened. And I think there needs to be a continued exchange between the ones who enabled us to even be in this place and having this possibility of discussing this publicly, and the ones who are now looking at developing the possibilities for the future.
Yeah, it's very important indeed.
Yeah, yeah. And of course they also worked in it was a different world when they began their work. Yeah.
It's like they've been there from ground up, from the beginning, the inception.
Yes. Yeah.
And what was it like to be in the presence of Albert Hoffmann?
Oh, he was just a real, I mean, he was just such a joy. He was once again, I mean, he was such an incredibly humble human being too, and innocent in a way that into his very old age, I met him when he was already in his 90s, and I would see him regularly every year and spend really beautiful moments with him and his wife in his home, and we would communicate and write letters. He would write me letters in German, and we would discuss subjects, and he was just an amazing, he was full of wonder to the end of his life. He never ceased to have gratitude for his discovery, and he was always amazed that it was him. He would always say, "Why me?" And I think we come into the world already being who we are. We just take hold of who we are more and more, and we become more embodied with who we are as we grow. But basically, we come into this world ready. And he had a very similar experience to the experience I had in nature when I was a child. He had this experience of being in the forest, and the whole forest took on this incredible hue and this light. And in that moment, he understood what it meant to be connected to the higher forces and to spirit. And I had a very similar connection and a very similar experience. So of course, if somebody, let's say a scientist had isolated the ergot, without the spiritual connection, it might have ended up in a whole different way, But Albert understood the implications. I mean, when he ingested it accidentally first and discovered that this was a way, an entryway, and somebody else might have, a non-connected person might have said, oh, this is the devil's work coming from a religious place, or this is something that makes you mad, or this is the stuff that creates schizophrenia in people. And so Albert was just the right person, and that was what he was supposed to do. And he was a very beautiful, appreciative human being. And that's, I think, the character description of the greatest people that I have encountered in my life, that they are always very humble. They always have a lot of respect for others. They always want to know what others have to say. They listen, and they keep the magic alive all the way into their later years.
Yeah, and this is what
This is the stuff that makes us happy, keeping the innocence alive, no matter where we go, how far and how high we go, to stay humble and to understand also our connection to everything, that we are a part of the whole, and that we have to that we have no choice but to embrace this incredible gift to be interconnected with and interdependent with everything around us and everything that is alive on Earth and throughout the universe.
Absolutely, yeah. That is it. That is the truth. Well, I would like to ask for your opinion, if that's okay. Yes. From a lot of my investigation and research, and also speaking to a lot of people, there is this theme that I'm noticing. They say that everything they have done working with the psychedelic medicine, psychedelic substances, or plant medicine, it's almost like they might be a successful, let's say, facilitator administering, let's say, ayahuasca or mescaline or different medicines, but they always say, but it was the LSD that helped me get here. Like it's a very interesting thing that I'm hearing from a lot of people, that, like, I am doing different things with different medicines, but initially it was the LSD that made me, or opened me up to the possibility of this. It's almost like, is that the master key of the whole psychedelic substance?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there are any master keys. Like I said, I was already touched by something to me then indescribable when I was a young child and I hadn't done anything. And LSD is certainly one way to go, but maybe it's also because a lot of people, because it was such a revolution, LSD just touched so many lives, and it went just, courtesy of Timothy Leary, it just went so popular that it was probably the most accessible. And let's face it, the 60s revolution was quite something. From what I've heard and what Robert told me, he said there was no time like it. It was just incredible. The world was just waking up, and people were just initiated and in such large numbers. And I don't know. I can say that, I could even say that once we're open, why even repeat the experience? It's something I'd like to propose, even, because where do we want to go once we have discovered the way in? I think it is a wonderful thing to be as independent from any regular activity or usage of anything. These are all wonderful tools, and we should use them for what they are.
Yeah, but not putting them as the center, like it's the center of everything.
No, But this is me. I've never followed gurus. I've never followed religions. I've never followed any particular philosophers. I'm always staying open to what the possibilities are, and I'm always trying to learn and better myself. I mean, we learn through life. It never stops. I mean, we learn throughout infinity, if that's at the core of our belief systems. That's what I believe. We keep just going and evolving and learning. I mean, it's a reflective universe.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said this, because at the moment, because of where we are with the Renaissance, so-called psychedelic Renaissance, I am also observing that at the moment it's like, excuse me, it's almost like it's either psychedelics or nothing. It's like we have almost put all of our hopes and everything in that basket.
Yeah.
That it's just it's very infant-like, needing a rescuer, needing a hero, needing someone to do for us,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
It's kind of those
Mhm.
kind of things. And I guess hoping that, as you said, life experiences will help us transition to more adult, mature. That's the transition. So then we let go of this
Yeah.
seeking the hero. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I mean, there's so many tools. I mean, we can meditate, we can do breath work, we can do silent retreats. I mean, there's so many tools, but I think it's always wonderful to keep them and see them for what they are. They're tools.
Absolutely. This is so wonderful advice. As we're coming to end of our conversation, Martina, I'd love to learn more about your offerings for our listeners. Like, what are you doing at the moment? We will be putting all your links in the show notes, but just so that you can take us through some of the things.
Yeah. Yes. So right now I'm working on, I'm preparing for a very, very large retrospective exhibition in Germany. And together with my partner, Pascal Ferry, we'll be exhibiting 150 paintings. So this is a massive show at the Museum im Schafstall. It's in a town in Neuenstadt am Kocher. I can give you the information if you want. It's so if anybody's in that area in Stuttgart, southern Germany, the show will be up for at least 3 months, if not 4. And so we are busy bees working every day on creating large pieces for this show, and that's one of my projects right now. And I'll be also at the Tarot Salon in Brittany for the presentation of the Dreams and Divinities Tarot deck, together with my friend Liba Warren Stabolion. And we have created this tarot deck with 7 different women over the course of 7 years. We hand painted these cards, and we've already had a show in Paris that exhibited these paintings, but we'll have another exhibition also coming up in March in Paris at Galerie 18 bis. And then I might be traveling to the States, and I'll be in my home over there in my studio for several months. I'll continue working on really interesting projects there. I'll be part of an angel show in California that is happening. I think it's opening in April. I mean, there's always such an abundance of exhibitions going on. I'm also part of a traveling show that has been traveling for, I think, close to 12 years now. And it's called Surrealism Now. It's a fantasy, surrealist, and visionary exhibition that has been traveling throughout Portugal. And yeah,
Wow.
so
Yeah, well,
a
so
gazillion. Yeah, life doesn't get boring.
It's so rich and it's exciting. Thank you for sharing. And lastly, I would like to ask you one last question. Was it really difficult in the beginning to be a visionary artist, or was it, how do people perceive and receive you now as opposed to the beginning? What has changed?
Oh, do you mean, was it difficult in terms of how my art was received, or
Like in general, like people
in
are into
general?
the visionary art, or are they more classical? You know, there's lots of, because I know so many people who have experience with the psychedelic medicines or plant medicines. They just get hypnotized when they see a visionary art, right? So, but then the larger population, how do they receive it? Is it universal? Is there something that pulls them? Or is there a
Mm,
judgment? Is there a rejection? Like how do you navigate?
okay. I mean, first of all, it's very difficult to create a container for visionary art, because visionary art means many different things in different countries. And personally, I feel that visionary art is not so much of a school of art or a movement, it's more of a current. And this current has been flowing throughout art history, from early Paleolithic art all the way to the contemporary art, and it exists in every decade, in every century, in every decade. And sometimes when we go to museums, we might even recognize that one particular artist is not a visionary painter at all, but there's that one painting that is absolutely visionary. Because for me, visionary means that the art is um, uh, intemporal, meaning that it's not connected to a particular time and space. It's
Timeless. It feels
it's
like
timeless,
timeless.
yes, and it represents, in my opinion, our deepest yearning to express our connection to something larger than us, and to understand what that is. And if we have glimpsed aspects of it, then we have this desire to share that. And that's where visionary art comes in. And for me, it's always been, I never questioned what I painted. I just painted what I had to paint, or what I painted, and I just showed it to the world and shared it with my public. So the question has never really, it has never fazed me to paint any other way, because, as I had explained earlier, painting for me is a path, and I do it because I must paint, and I must paint like this. So my considerations are never whether this will be art that can sell, whether it's attractive to the world, whether people will like it or not. My first concern, if there is a concern, is just with my own process. And I just do because I'm guided to do this. And if people like it or love it, then I'm just really pleased and honored.
I just love this. This is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Recently, I tuned into Rick Rubin, the creativity. He's kind of writes a lot about creativity. A very powerful quote he said, if you're doing art for others, it's not art. Art is when you do it for yourself. It has to come through you. And I thought,
Of course.
right, when you said when you shared, I just kind of thought about that quote, and it's very powerful.
Yes. Yeah, Jake is
So
so right. Yeah, he's so right with that. I think the most important aspect of really good art is that it is so authentic. That's what makes it so powerful, because you can sense the creator behind the art when you're looking at it, or his or her state of beingness.
yeah, yeah.
It's a wave of energy. I mean, when we paint, we imbue the canvas with vibration. That's why original art is so powerful compared to prints, for example, because there is that it's palpable. Beautiful piece of art will vibrate.
Yeah, beautiful. Martina, this has been such an honor. Thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate you. And hope to follow your journey. I just wanted to close the call with saying that we are really honored to have you and learn from you. It's been so insightful. It's been so beautiful. And thank you for doing all the work you're doing. And hope to maybe have you back soon for a follow-up if you're available.
Yes, that would be my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. And it was really a great pleasure. It was a delight to speaking with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Please check it out. Check Martina's art. We'll have all the links and the museum information and the exhibitions, all the information in the show notes. And I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for joining us. Psychedelic Conversations podcast is designed to educate, inform, and expand awareness. For more information, please head over to psychedelicconversations.com. You can also share with your friends or leave a review so that we can reach more people. You can also join us in our private Facebook group to keep the conversation going. This show is for information purposes only, and it is not intended to provide mental health or medical advice. Thanks for listening.